60 Minutes is in serious turmoil, thanks to its executive producer, Bill Owens, quitting and publicly throwing a temper tantrum. What happened? Oh, buckle up. On Tuesday, the EP of 6 years, but only the third ever to hold that post in nearly 6 decades at 60, said he would be resigning from the Sunday news program, suggesting he felt the network was encroaching too much on his editorial calls. This could not be tolerated at the vaunted 60 Minutes, you see, which is entirely unbiased and uninfluenced by anything other than the facts. All right? You may not know that, but it's true. Just ask them. Mr. Owens and others argue that the show has had total independence from the network brass for the show's 57 years on the air, and that suddenly that was changing. Under Don Hewitt, the original EP, they said, hey, we had independence and it worked out pretty well. He was there for almost 60 years. It's crazy the number of years he was there. Under Jeff Fager, he was there for the next 14, less so. And under Mr. Owens, 60 Minutes has all but lost its mind, shilling for progressives. And I, for one, am thrilled to see him go. Not that I think this broadcast with its current staff is salvageable. I'm just in favor of dismantling this current version of the show, which would appropriately fit in any hour of MSNBC primetime. The latest meltdown started when Donald Trump filed a $10 billion lawsuit against CBS and its parent company, Paramount, accusing 60 Minutes of unlawful and illegal behavior in what he said was its deceptive editing of the Kamala Harris interview before this last election. You remember they took her word salad answer about Netanyahu and they siphoned it down to make her sound more cogent. We caught it because they put out the wrong version of it when they were teasing the interview, and then they played a different version when she actually appeared. Most legal analysts, including this one, do not see much of any merit in that lawsuit, but Trump has used it as a cudgel over Paramount, whose owner, Sherry Redstone, is trying to sell the company right now to Skydance, and that sale is going to need government approval. Trump has long complained about 60 Minutes being unfair to him and biased in favor of Democrats. And on that, he is 100% correct. Under Jeff Fager, yes, definitely, but especially under Bill Owens. But before we get to Owens, let's take a quick look back at the Fager years and how 60 treated Barack Obama.
You don't have any doubts that you're ready?
No.
Where do you get all this confidence?
How are you finding the job? What's the most frustrating part of the job? Do you take a day off?
Have you gotten lost in here yet?
Do you see some hope? Do you think that things are going to get better? What do you think that you might have the unemployment rate down to 8% by the time the election rolls around?
This is the most aggressive speech I've seen you give it in a while.
Right.
What changed?
Why do you think you'd be a good president?
Steve asked and answered. Let's move on.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, we almost added the little hearts, the emojis coming out of Steve Kroft in his head for that series of hard-hitting interviews. Not exactly murderer's row, is it? Like back in the Mike Wallace years. Who could forget this absurdity? This was under Bill Owens when Leslie Stahl interviewed Donald Trump in October 2020, just before his re-election battle against Joe Biden, after the Hunter Biden laptop had come out.
It's one of the biggest scandals I've ever seen, and you don't cover it. You want to talk about...
Well, because it can't be verified.
You want to talk about insignificant things.
I'm telling you.
Of course it can be verified. Excuse me, they found the laptop. Leslie.
It can't be verified.
What can't be verified?
The laptop.
Why do you say that?
Because
even the family hasn't... The family on the laptop, he's gone into hiding. For 5 days, he's gone into hiding.
He's preparing for your debate.
Oh, it's taken him 5 days to prepare? I doubt it.
We only know that exchange took place because Trump taped it himself, not trusting 60 to air his full grievance, and indeed he was right, and he released it. Same time frame, October 2020, 60 took us inside the Lincoln Project's campaign against President Trump. And did they do a hard-hitting expose on the rabidly anti-Trump grifters who are loathed by virtually all Republicans and accomplished little more than successfully lining their own pockets? Let's see
These buccaneers have made a name for themselves with malicious attack ads, churning out new ones almost daily, most released cost-free on social media. John Weaver feels it's the party that's betrayed him.
I mean, look, Leslie, we've gone from caring about character, rule of law, defending the Constitution, a cogent national security policy, free trade. Where are all those issues? Imagine if you travel the country for 30 years fighting for Republican principles, and you learn it was all a lie. No one cares about all the issues that we fought for.
How painful is it for you to turn against the Republican Party? Do you ever sit around and talk about you're repudiating your life in a way?
How painful is it, John Weaver, my little buccaneer? By the way, Google John Weaver Lincoln Project and see what other questions Leslie Stahl could have asked if 60 had actually done some investigative reporting about that group. After the 2020 election, the biggest story in the nation was, of course, Mr. Trump's claims of voter fraud, especially in places like Pennsylvania, where Democrats made changes to voting laws late in the process, to voting procedures late in the process, not approved by the lawmakers, not approved by the state legislature. And those changes allowed ballots to arrive after Election Day to count. They allowed less secure ballot drop boxes and more. Did 60 take an in-depth, fair and balanced look at that?
As COVID spiked again, vote-by-mail ballots flooded tabulation centers. Other ballots jammed street-side drop boxes or were hand-delivered to registrars and city clerks. What could have been chaos instead became an exercise in democracy.
Okay. Democracy in action. That's all it was, folks. That case went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And fine, it was not resolved in President Trump's favor. We know that. But it was just democracy. That's all. No more. Not really a valid legal battle. Joe Biden was, of course, sworn in as president, as you know, in 2020. And did 60 spend the next 4 years digging into the president's mental acuity with in-depth 60 Minutes pieces? Oh, they asked a question or two along the way, but no. Or his opening of the southern border, allowing more than 10 million illegals to flood the country? No. Or how about the COVID overreaches under that president? Absolutely not. It appears they had a different focus.
We wanted to ask Governor DeSantis about the deal, but he declined our request for an interview. We caught up with him south of Orlando.
Publix, as you know, donated $100,000 to your campaign, and then you rewarded them with the exclusive rights to distribute the vaccination in Palm Beach.
So first of all, what you're saying is wrong.
How is that not pay to play?
That's a fake narrative. I met with the county mayor, I met with the administrator, I met with all the folks at Palm Beach County, and I said, here's some of the options. We can do more drive-through sites. We can give more to hospitals. We can do the Publix. And they said, we think that would be the easiest thing for our residents.
But Melissa McKinley, the county commissioner in the Glades, told us the governor never met with her about the Publix deal.
The criticism is that it's pay to play,
Governor. It's wrong. It's a fake narrative. I just disabused you of the narrative, and you don't care about the facts because obviously I laid it out for you in a way that is irrefutable.
Well,
and so it's clearly not.
Isn't there the nearest Publix to the Glades is
you're
30
wrong.
miles
You're wrong.
away?
You're wrong. Yes,
That's
sir.
actually a fact.
Obviously fearing that Ron DeSantis might become the eventual Republican nominee, in April 2021, 60 aired a disgustingly misleading report by Sharon Alfonsi suggesting DeSantis was guilty of a pay-for-play campaign contribution scheme by which he offered the COVID vaccination shots at Publix supermarkets as some sort of payback to a grocery store chain that had donated to his campaign. 60 showed a bit of that brief exchange between Alfonsi and Governor DeSantis in which he offered what looked like a rather lame response to her tough questions and just happened to leave on the editing room floor the bulk of his extremely substantive answer to every point she raised, in which he utterly dismantled her accusations. Even some Florida Democrats, after they saw the piece, lashed out, saying they had told 60 Minutes the public story was, quote, bullshit, but that the producers did not seem to care. It wasn't just political hits on candidates either. Take a look at the show's coverage of, say, climate change. This one's from January 2023.
1970, the planet's 3.5 billion people were sustainable. But on this New Year's Day, the population is 8 billion. Today, wild plants and animals are running out of places to live. The scientists you're about to meet say the Earth is suffering a crisis of mass extinction on a scale unseen since the dinosaurs. A World Wildlife Fund study says that in the past 50 years, the abundance of global wildlife has collapsed 69%, mostly for the same reason.
Too many people, too much consumption, and growth mania.
I would say it's too much to say that we're killing the planet, because the planet's going to be fine. What we're doing is we're killing our way of life.
Amazing. No mention of the number of nearly identical warnings, just like this, that had rained down upon the populace for years, decades prior to this report, with not a scintilla of accuracy. None of the climate change doomsday predictions has come true. Somehow they forgot that in the piece. Or how about this one? More recently on free speech in Germany, where people are literally being arrested for saying things deemed, quote, offensive online, a concept most normal Americans would detest. Not back to Sharon Alfonsi. Not Sharon Alfonsi, though. She appears to love the idea.
How many cases are you working on at any time?
In our unit, we have about 3,500 cases per year.
9 investigators work out of this office in a converted courthouse. Lau says they get hundreds of tips a month from police, watchdog groups, and victims.
You must see a lot of crazy stuff.
Yes.
The worst of the internet is wrapped in red case folders, stuffed with printouts of online slurs, threats, and hate.
This is a criminal offense, so.
What does that say?
Kletterpark for Flüchtlinge.
So they're suggesting that the refugee children play in the electrical wires. Okay.
In this case, the accused had to pay 3,750 euros.
Wow.
It's not a parking ticket.
Yeah, not a parking ticket.
It's so fun to laugh about. If you watch the whole piece, it gets even worse. We played for you yesterday Scott Pelley's attempted takedown of Moms for Liberty when they appeared on the show, who he said had no basis for their totally empty assertions that LGBTQ books and other inappropriate material is intentionally being put in K through 5 libraries. So wrong were Moms for Liberty that all 9 justices on the U.S. Supreme Court just spent a day immersed in titles promoting LGBTQ material in K through 5 classrooms, the very thing Scott Pelley says is not happening. And the only question was not whether, in fact, it does occur and is occurring, but why schools are refusing to allow parents to opt out. Looking forward to your follow-up, Scott Pelley, and your apology. So this is what Bill Owens's independence has gotten us. Oh, never before has anyone overseen me. The absolute worst, most biased, hardest leftist version of 60 Minutes that we have ever been subjected to. And yet to hear him and his supporters tell it, Sherry Redstone finally looking at the program and saying, you need to reel it in, people. What she actually did was just appoint a producer to enforce the company's, quote, journalistic standards. This was the breach. This was the straw that broke the back of 60 Minutes at its core. In a leaked goodbye memo to staff, Owens writes, quote, over the past months, it has become clear that I would not be allowed to run the show as I have always run it, to make independent decisions based on what was right for 60 Minutes, right for the audience. So, having defended this show and what we stand for from every angle over time with everything I could, I am stepping aside so the show can move forward. And lest you think I am being overly dramatic, he indeed was reported to have said this and spoken to the newsroom in tears. A gut punch, said a veteran 60 Minutes producer to the New York Times, which broke the story. Profoundly disturbing, wrong. And then this, as reported by Jake Tapper on CNN, who spoke with some 60 Minutes producers reeling from the news.
A second 60 Minutes source tells me, quote, Bill has widespread support at 60. He's dedicated his life to CBS and the broadcast. And this was his last act of dedication to it. It's like a guy who has been battling for months against an attack, unable to defend the broadcast from inappropriate corporate influence. He pulls the pin from his last grenade. He sacrificed himself, hoping it might make our corporate overlords wake up and realize they risk destroying what makes 60 Minutes great. It seems clear now, in a quest to sell the company, Sherry Redstone and others will bow to presidential pressure. 60 Minutes is one of the crown jewels of American broadcast journalism, and they have no problem crushing it in their race to make a deal and make themselves richer.
He's like a Medal of Honor winner. He's jumping on the grenade, sacrificing himself to save the totally independent and unbiased 60 from the evil Trump and his influence over Sherry Redstone. Perhaps, friends at 60, the problem lies not with your corporate owner or your president, but with you. Maybe, just maybe, you've lost your way. Perhaps you've gone so far leftward in your programming that it's actually caused the corporate brass to finally notice. Yes, it's happening in the context of a lawsuit and a merger. But you've gone so far leftward, it's actually endangered the sale of your parent company. Might this not be a time to reflect, revamp, recover some of that old magic that made the broadcast famous to begin with? We'll believe it when you fire literally every correspondent. You can start with Sharon, but Scott Pelley has to go, as do the others. Every correspondent on staff, along with all producers. Shred it down to the studs, and we will consider taking you seriously again. Until then, goodbye, Bill. You'll go the way of 60's ratings. Out the door, into retirement, never to be seen again. Tariff wars, stubborn inflation. No wonder gold has been routinely hitting all-time highs. In volatile markets like the one we have now, do not sit on the sidelines with your head in the sand. You can take control and safeguard your savings. That's why so many Americans today are turning to Birch Gold Group. They have helped tens of thousands convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. Is it time for you to hedge against economic instability with gold? To learn how to own physical gold in a tax-sheltered account, text MK to the number 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free, no-obligation info kit. Again, text MK to the numbers 989898. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews, Birch Gold has helped so many protect their savings with gold. It took us decades to get into the tangled mess they're trying to unpack now in D.C. How long is it going to take for us to get out of it, and at what cost? Text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.